in sight. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, that's the age-old philosophical thought experiment about perception and observation. But after this weekend, we can modify it this way. If a Trump march draws tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of peaceful, patriotic people to Washington, and no one's around to report it, did it really occur? Well, it was billed as the Million MAGA March. That's more than tens of thousands. And you look at it by the overhead shots, it could be one of the biggest grassroots protests the Capitol has ever seen. Attendees were families, young, old, black, white, Hispanic. They came from near and far, all to support the America First agenda and to stand with the man who has endured so much in order to lead the movement.
See, that was their,
you know, and American people know.
their graphics.
You know, and you can see.
Ours are on the side.
We gotta make sure our president gets back in the office. 4 more years.
What?
Now, it's a fair guess that most in that gigantic crowd are convinced that Trump won the election. And it's likewise reasonable for them to conclude that they don't have much trust in the U.S. media. Now, pockets, by the way, were even chanting against this news channel for what they perceive as election night bias against the president. Others were rightfully outraged that few networks were even carrying the rally at all. And the ones who did were only interested in insulting the attendees.
The president's supporters, they poured into the streets of Washington this weekend to try to give life to these unfounded and baseless claims of a rigged election. How did this become normal?
I think with some of these demonstrators, good luck getting a clear or fact-based, logical answer to some of the questions you're posing.
These people are fundamentally a joke. These aren't serious people. These are members of a cult. I hope they get frostbite.
I hope they get frostbite, is what he said. Now remember, these talking heads are some of the kind, tolerant, unifying, and loving people that Biden and Harris claim make up their movement. Well, 73 million people voted for President Trump, and it's not too much for them to expect, is it, that the media treat them fairly and respectfully. Likewise, it's not too much for them to expect that only legal votes will be counted, and that their votes must not be nullified due to fraud. Now, for years now, I've been speaking about this type of honest, hardworking Americans who came to Washington over the weekend.
Right hand.
And throughout this time, the so-called elites in our nation's capital have responded to the legitimate concerns of American citizens with mockery and contempt. It's dumbfounding to me that the media and Democrats still don't understand what a stupid strategy it is to alienate and dismiss all of these Americans. I think they're making the same mistake they made back in 2009 and 2010 when the much smaller Tea Party movement
I'm trying to turn
started.
the closed caption off, but I don't know how.
You see the Tea Party movement as a real political force this year?
Look, it seems to be a very successful private enterprise.
Nobody actually knows what they're for. We just know what they are against.
It's not about taxes. This is about hating a black man in the White House. They call it AstroTurf. It's not really a grassroots movement.
Those of you who are watching certain news channels that, in which I'm not very popular,
Did he want the whole thing or just?
and you see folks waving tea bags around.
After that.
They thought that all that condescension would make the movement go away. But it only made the Tea Party stronger. Less than 2 years after those insults, Republicans took control of the House in 2010. Now, some of the Tea Party candidates included those little-known people, Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Tim Scott, and Mike Lee. And 4 years later, the GOP took control of the Senate. 2 years after that, Donald Trump was elected president. Now, the difference between the Tea Party then and President Trump's movement now is that this movement now has a lot more clarity about what it wants. The same Trump economic and foreign policy agenda that led to higher wages, fewer wars. And whatever the final electoral college tally is in this election, this movement has a proven track record of success on everything from achieving our energy independence to challenging China, to fast-tracking a COVID vaccine, to raising family incomes. The results were so impressive that not only did President Trump broaden his coalition among working-class Americans, but he helped grow the party's numbers in the House.
Started again.
When all those vaunted media experts with all their credentials were predicting the opposite. They claimed Trump was going to shrink the party, remember that? Especially among minorities. Wrong again.
Blacks and Latinos are doing much better under Trump versus Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Opportunity zones, which is something that, in my opinion, is the largest economic empowerment program for the black community since the Reconstruction.
We've done a lot of things, like I said, a lot of business coming to my neighborhood. I guess a lot of black people own homes.
Why couldn't the networks find these people to interview? They were there.